All right. So, what we're going to talk about here is we are going to talk about the oil prices. Fell by 7% today. Um, excuse me. There we go. So, oil prices fell 7%. Supposedly, the numbers for how much production the U.S. was putting out came out today, and trying to figure out, basically what the hell is going on. Um, so we got first article I wanted to go through is this one right here. Let's see. So it says here, but with Iran, hang on a second. A group of producers around the Middle East dominated organization of the petroleum exporting countries, OPEC, as well as Russia, decided last June to relax output curbs in place since 2017 after pressure from U.S. President Donald Trump to reduce oil prices and make up for supply losses from Iran. But with Iran sanctions now in place and oil still in ample availability, OPEC led production cuts next year cannot be ruled out, two OPEC sources said on Wednesday. OPEC and Russia may use cuts to support $70 per barrel. So it says the only way is up, question mark. And then it says at the heart of rising global output has been a relentless increase in U.S. crude production, which hit a record 11.6 million barrels per day in the week ending November 2nd, according to Energy Information Administration, which I'm pretty sure is like a government organization that keeps track of all that stuff. So who knows if that's even right. But says that's a threefold increase from the U.S. low reach a decade ago. So in 10 years, we've tripled our oil output. A 22.2% rise just this year. It makes the United States the world's biggest producer of crude oil. So we have now eclipsed Saudi Arabia and Russia as the leading oil producers. And the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is the mechanism which controls the dollar is oil. So, for example, if I want to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, I have to buy it in dollars. If I want to buy oil from America, I have to buy it in dollars. And I don't know how many other countries trade, but considering that the United States and Saudi Arabia control the oil, means they control the flow of dollars. And as long as dollars are being exported into the market, the lower our inflation rate becomes and the stronger the dollar becomes. So, for example, if, let's say, oil prices go up to like $100 a barrel, that means that people are going to have to pay more dollars for oil abroad. So if oil becomes super cheap in the United States to where other countries cannot compete with the oil prices in America, they will have to find other places to export the oil. And they're going to have to export the oil probably to nations that are less developed. But at the same time, they are propagating the dollar. So they're trading other nations for oil in dollars, which then would increase the value of the dollar while keeping oil prices in America down. So very, very weird mechanism. And if you want to look at it this way, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and the United States are shareholders in the dollar currency. Now, so threefold increase from the U.S. low reached a decade ago, and a 22.2% rise just this year. So almost a quarter, almost 25% rise. Makes the United States the world's biggest producer of crude oil. More U.S. oil will likely come. The EIA expects output to break through 12 million barrels per day by mid-2019, thanks largely to a surge in shale oil production. Meanwhile, U.S. crude inventories rose by 5.8 million barrels in the week ending November 2nd to 231.7 million barrels. So 431.7 million barrels is our stock. Like that's like our reserve. It's an unbelievable amount of reserve of oil. I don't know how oil is as expensive as it is. However, considering we live in cities, they tax the shit out of it. Oil is probably realistically only around $2 a gallon max. But because of all the taxes, the state and federal taxes, it's like 3 something. Sometimes I have seen it as high as 4. Crude stocks moved back above their 5-year average levels in October. Production has not just risen in the United States, but also in many other countries, including Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Brazil, stoking producer concerns of a return of oversupply that depressed oil prices between 2014 and 2017. So producers are concerned about the potential oversupply. Which means that OPEC and Russia are in talks of basically reducing their supply to keep oil prices up, which means that we will be selling more of the stockpile that we have. Which I don't know why they would do that. They either have a choice, right? They're faced with like a double-edged sword. They either stop producing and selling oil to make money, or they allow for the price of oil to plummet and they make just not as much money, or they'll get outcompete, or they won't be able to compete in the market. So basically, if you want to look at it this way, Donald Trump is pushing them into a corner. Russia and Saudi Arabia being the 2 largest exporters of oil. Article number 2, this is the one that I saw that was talking about the LNG, but this is crude oil futures plunge, basically talking about this right here. This, no. There we go. This 7% dip that just like basically somewhat collapsed a little bit. I mean, look at it. Just gone down. So let's go back to this. So December, hold on, where was I at? The story Tuesday was considerably more positive in regard to natural gas futures, December Henry Hub price gain 31 cents. Blah blah blah. Cold temperatures will require significant draws out of storage, setting the stage for high gas prices going forward despite rising gas production. So even though the production of gas in the US is going to go up, so what's going to happen is in the winter OPEC is going to cut their they're going to cut their production either sometime during the winter or after, and then the price will go up. I don't know how much higher or how much it'll go up, but they see what else do they say in here. Bottlenecks make it difficult to increase gas supplies into the northwest from the U.S. Gulf Coast, which will make the price spike even worse in that region. Tight supply in that region could lead to an increase in LNG imports later this year or first quarter 2019. This is an article that I found very interesting on the gas side. It's liquid natural gas, but it's still gas, I guess, right? So I'm just going to read you the highlights from the article. So it says, by the end of 2019, the United States will become one of the world's 3 largest exporters of liquefied natural gas, which we were not before Donald Trump. Qatar, which has been the globe's biggest LNG producer until now, will begin implementing a more aggressive strategy next year in the face of competition from the United States and Australia. Oh, what are you doing over there, Turnbull? Donald Trump has wanted to have us compete. He's tired of having the wealth squandered, and he's tired of seeing the potential that America has, that people in America have. He doesn't want them to be drug addicts and, people that just lay around and do nothing. He wants to give them a purpose. And I know it's something that's really hard to understand when you already have something that you live for every day, whether it be your kids or maybe it's your wife or your girlfriend, your family. There are some people out there who have not been so lucky. It's actually quite a large number, more than you think. If I walk around every day and I see, like 15 different homeless people on a day-to-day basis, obviously I'm in California, so there's a lot of people, but that should never happen. Those people, they don't have a purpose, and there are some things that have led to those people, or to the life that they lead. Obviously, they've had it a lot harder than some of us, most of us, but they should have they should be given the opportunity to change. And right now, I don't believe that is even close to being possible in the current state of the economy. And as much as Donald Trump wants to cheerlead, it is definitely getting there, but it's not there yet. U.S. trading partners could promise to produce American LNG as a way to reduce their trade surpluses. So we are going to basically give them LNG to reduce the amount of money that we owe them. So that right in itself is interesting. China is unlikely to purchase LNG from the United States because of their trade war, choosing instead to buy Russian gas from Siberia. Wow, it's like, what a shocker. But who cares? Like, we have all of Europe, which is a highly developed nation. China obviously is a very large market, but if you add up the rest of the world, fuck China. It's like, what are they gonna do? The United States will ramp up its pressure on the European Union to buy more U.S. LNG and to improve its infrastructure so it can reduce the bloc's reliance on Russian energy. And I love how the European Union, specifically Germany, they're all freaked out, thinking Russia's going to do something. They're not going to do anything. It's just ridiculous for them to even think about it. But at the same time, they're like heavily reliant on Russia for their energy. Everybody's cooking on, their water heaters and everything else. It's all Russian. It's like, are you people insane? What the hell are you doing? So I just wanted to show you that as well. And like I said, all this stuff will be in the description below in case you guys want to take a look at these articles. Malaysia basically decided that they were going to cancel a $3 billion pipeline. And the China's Belt and Road Initiative, they have been pushing hard. And what they're essentially trying to do is what we've been doing for the last like 60 years. And what we did was we put all these countries into debt in order to buy. So basically, we put ourselves into debt. And then we made other countries buy our debt on top of having them the only way that they can afford their debt is if they bought our debt. So it's just like basically everybody's in debt right now. The only problem is China is so much in debt to where now they're like, oh shit, if we don't get everybody else in debt, if we don't have them buy our dollar or our money, we're fucked. And that's basically where we're at right now. Or at least that's where China's at. We've been going down that road way too long. So China was trying to get Malaysia on a $3 billion pipeline. It says here it was a representation, probably the biggest knockback so far for President Xi Jinping. Belt and Road Initiative. The initiative has been bankrolling large-scale energy projects across the region, which, by the way, the BRICS Bank, the bank that is formed by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. I think there's other countries in there too, but that's what the BRICS stands for. It's a development bank. What they do is they give out loans to other countries, same way like the IMF does, or the World Bank. So they basically started their own because they didn't want to be a part of the dollar. And they can't get people to go into debt because they know that they can't afford it, and they know that eventually, China is going to be able to leverage over them. And they don't want... Look, I even tell people that they're like, what, you're crazy. Why don't you buy a new car? Why don't you buy a new truck? I'm like, dude, they're like $40,000. I don't have that kind of money. Like, well, you just get a loan. No, you don't go to the bank and you don't go into debt for something that you don't need. Okay? If worse comes to worse, I fucking ride a bike. Or, if I really had to, I could just Uber or something. You would come up with something. But you don't go $40,000 into debt for something that you don't need. Look, even if you bought a nice truck or a nice car or whatever for $40,000 or $20,000 or $15,000, and let's say it lasts you 10 years, right? You still, I don't think, well, you could probably pay it off in 10 years, but still, It just it's just weird, all right? It's just weird. So these countries are getting the same feeling, they don't want to go into debt. They don't want to go into debt for China. They don't want to go into debt for the BRICS Bank. The new Malaysian government shows of independent follows Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad promise to review all the country's unequal treaties with China. So basically, they're giving China the boot. Many of these involve Belt and Road initiatives, including a $20 billion rail link. China's state-owned oil groups have also suffered setbacks recently in South Africa. Sinopec lost out to a Glencore-backed bid in the race to acquire Chevron's downstream business, despite being the U.S. company preferred bidder. The assets, which include a 110,000 barrels a day refinery near Cape Town, went for $973 million. That defeat followed another failure by Sinopec in the region. In August 2017, a GE-led consortium piped the Chinese company to the post for the construction of a 30,000 barrel a day refinery in western Uganda that will process the country's crude. So that's even another, blow to what's going on over there. Continuing, instead of attracting hundreds of crude oil tankers and other bulk carriers as the former government predicted, the port proved to be a financial white elephant. In 2017, the current government was forced to hand 80% of the equity to Hong Kong-based conglomerate China Merchant Port Holding on a 99-year lease. In an investigation, the New York Times described the entire project as a debt trap. I don't think China gets it. Like, I understand that they're communists and I think they can just do whatever they want. They're gonna have some serious problems in the future, and obviously, at this rate, if they could just continue at this rate, they're just fuck it, let's just do this shit. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work at all. So, in total, the port cost $1.4 billion, but has barely broken even on revenues of a few $1 million a year. Today, it's largely unused. It's now considered likely that Hambantota will become a base for the Chinese Navy on a highly strategic area. So, there's China. I could read this whole article, but honestly, I don't know. I'm going to read this last part. It's titled Steamroller. The Belt and Road juggernaut continues apace in other regions though. According to Xi's own assessment, by September, China's outward direct investment exceeded the 60 billion mark and has attracted trade with Belt and Road countries of more than 5 trillion. Hold up. Has attracted trade with Belt and Road countries of more than 5 trillion. So 5 trillion? I don't even know how to read that. You guys go through this article, because it's probably one of the better articles that I've read on just how China is just tries to basically just trap people. Um, Here's another article on China that I'm going to talk about, and I think this will probably be the last one, maybe. We'll see. Part of China's blue sky strategy is the switch from coal to natural gas, with an unexpected impact on the global LNG market. Between 2015 and 2017, China's liquefied natural gas imports doubled. Pipeline gas imports more than doubled. Yet last winter, China faced an unprecedented gas supply crisis that left homes, schools, and hospitals without heating, prompting a scramble to divert gas from industry. So, if China is buying from Russia, right? China is buying liquid natural gas from Siberia, which is what we read in one of the other articles, and doesn't want to buy from America. What are they? And they already had a crisis, right? Supposedly in 2015 and 2017, or between the 2 years. What does that mean they're going to do? What can they do? Well, they're going to have to either come to us or Australia. And to be honest with you, I don't think Australia gives a shit. They got enough problems on their own. Because guess what? They don't have enough electricity either. And the reason they don't have enough electricity is because they got sold on a bunch of windmills and they don't have any wind. So... What? Oh, God. The immediate cause of the crisis was an air pollution prevention and control program stipulating that coal-fired boilers in key regions should be replaced with gas-fired ones. The deadline, October 2017, coincided with the Communist Party's 19th National Congress and so implementation was exceptionally forceful. In some places, coal boilers were ripped out before gas replacements were available. In others, the switch was made without gas supply being available, even where coal and equipment to burn it could be found. Restrictions were in place forbidding its use. Why would they do that? It goes back to the whole, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Don't try to fix it. Coal power plants, all you gotta do is carbon capture. China has the fucking technology, they're just being assholes. Moving along. U.S. and Poland inked 24-year LNG deal, securing energy security. Huh, that just sounds weird. The U.S. and Poland has signed a 24 LNG deal that will ensure the latter's energy security and independence from the big Russian bear to the east. LNG is completely changing the global energy landscape. The U.S. Just made a 24-year deal with Poland to facilitate shipment of LNG to the land of God, honor, fatherland. The LNG will ensure Poland's independence from an ever-hungry Russian bear looking to reestablish dominance over Eastern Europe. This LNG deal is likely to be one of many, and we can expect Pennsylvania LNG to find its way to Europe via Cove Point. So, the U.S. is being very aggressive, whether it's Donald Trump getting their foot in the door, or maybe it's just we weren't really competing altogether. It could have been something as easy as, hey, let's just fucking go into debt. Like the American way. Just go millions of dollars in debt, and then eventually we'll make our money back. We'll deal with the consequences later, like we always do. We'll deal with it when we get there. But that's good. Not the debt part, but the fact that we're competing in a global market again. That's a big deal. This is another article. I've been kind of saving this because it's a very interesting topic that I don't think a lot of people talk about in this type of form. In the sense of just basically going through the news, going through what is actually happening in this particular area of our economy. This area to me is very interesting because of the geopolitical, like that last article. It's talking about LNG, but it's also talking about energy independence from a nation, from a superpower that wants, basically that wants power over you. They want to control you. They want to be able to have leverage over you with your energy, and through your people. See, when you become a developed nation, you are at the whim of those who, it's like they say, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Well, if another nation feeds you, you can't bite the hand. But if you feed yourself, there is no hand. But I am going to move on to this article. Oil volatile as Saudi Arabia opens door to production cut. So this was the other thing that we were talking about earlier, and basically the supply of oil has gone up to the extent that OPEC and Saudi Arabia are like, look, we need to cut our losses here. We need to cut back, which is going to give America more of the market. But it's also going to keep prices high, which means that we're going to sell more of our own oil while keeping the profits. But it's also going to circulate those dollars within our own country rather than circulate those dollars throughout the world or in the stock market or in the commodities market. It's basically going to pull money out of the commodities market into the U.S. economy. So something to look forward to maybe in 2019 when the prices of oil goes up and the production is strictly coming from U.S. oil reserves. Chevron. Now, I keep seeing Chevron come up, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell is this Chevron. Well, Chevron was the one that sold, right, in South Africa to, I believe it was a U.S. company, or maybe Chevron bought that South Africa refinery. But this article is stating, this is by Kajal Vyas. I don't even know who that is. But I found this very interesting because it says Chevron stayed in Venezuela long after rivals quit. Then it had second thoughts. For nearly a century, Chevron Corp has weathered dictatorships, coups, and nationalization drives to keep pumping oil in Venezuela. But recently, executives at the last U.S. oil major in the country have debated whether it may be time to get out. According to people familiar with their deliberations, for now, Chevron hopes to hang on and outlast President Nicolas Maduro, as it did with his last mentor, Hugo Chavez, and other rulers. "We're committed to our position in Venezuela." Clay Neff, Chevron's president of exploration and production in Africa and Latin America. So yeah, it was Chevron that was in Africa, who outbid China, by the way, said in an interview Thursday following initial online publication of this story. Let's see. This was posted November 8th, so right after the election. Chevron's dilemma is both moral and commercial. The California-based giant long enjoyed close relations with the socialist regime, a regime that controls the world's largest oil reserves and has entered big money in Venezuela. About $2.8 billion between 2004 and 2014. So, very interesting indeed. One last thing I'm going to add in here before I go, and that is Russia looks to hydrogen as a way to make gas greener for Europe. So we all talk about basically Europe is one of those places, or it is the place that the Paris Climate Accord was going to have major impacts on, as far as regulation and everything else. Now, whether they follow through with that, that's up to them. But this article here talks about how Russia is trying to keep itself competitive, but also like somewhat, I guess, ahead of the curve, make them seem, more legit, which is great. Do whatever you want, Russia. I don't care. But hydrogen, I've been saying for a long time, is going to be the future of fuel. LNG, fine. You can run cars and everything off of it. I don't think LNG is going to be the one. If it's going to be anything, it's going to be hydrogen. It just is. A lot of these companies have already made massive investments in hydrogen. And right now they're doing the testing. Hydrogen in the future, it doesn't freeze, right? It doesn't freeze like gasoline. I'm not sure about LNG, but if temperatures drop, which I believe they will, over the next 20 to 30 years, that's why the whole Agenda 2030 thing is such a big deal, is because the temperature is supposed to drop, which means they're trying to get people to go into inner cities where there's like for that heat island effect bullshit, to where it's going to seem like it's warmer, but then like if you go outside the city, it's colder, but you won't really be paying attention because you'll be in the city all the damn time. It's a bunch of manipulation of the mind bullshit. But it says Russia is looking at how to develop a market for hydrogen in Europe, a move that would help maintain demand for one of its primary exports as governments everywhere work to cut pollution. Gazprom, which is it's like Russia's state-run oil company, the Russian company that is dominant exporter of natural gas into Europe, it's exploring ways to produce emissions-free hydrogen from the fuel and create a 153 billion euro a year market by 2050. The effort would bring Russia in step with the government of Japan, oil major Royal Dutch Shell. Now, Japan is basically leading this charge for hydrogen, and they want the what do you call it? They want the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. Like that's their main thing, is they want to turn all their bullet trains hydrogen. They want to turn all their buses hydrogen. They want to turn they have the Toyota Mirai. You can get 3 years of free fuel when you buy that thing. It's like $60,000, but you don't have to pay for fuel for 3 years. That's crazy. And basically, what you're doing is you're like the price of basically you lock in 3 years of free fuel, but you pay $60,000 over the course of whatever your loan is. So they like price it into this car, and then you pay on it. You make payments on your fuel. Fucking, what are these people doing, man? It's crazy. So there's that. And let's see, let's continue on down here. Handful of companies that are promoting fuel cells and hydrogen as an alternative to electricity generation and transportation fed by fossil fuels, with Europe working to make dramatic reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. Russia is looking for ways to make its gas green enough to remain part of the energy mix. Hydrogen is an option because it can be made from natural gas without generating additional emissions. Because it can be made from natural gas without generating wow, well, would you look at that? That is something I also did not know. So there's that. Hydrogen. Russia is looking to become a exporter of hydrogen into the European markets, on top of the liquid natural gas that they're basically dominating because nobody else wants to do it. On top of, Russia is like number 2 in the world for exporting oil. So I mean, Russia, while they have a lot of revenue, you have to take into consideration that's like the majority of their economy. So I mean, they're like a little Saudi Arabia, but not as wealthy. Their people are extremely poor, whereas in Saudi Arabia everybody's filthy rich. So anyways, I hope you guys learned something in this video and in this audio. I hope I didn't dominate it with the visuals too much for you people listening on SoundCloud and everything. So I hope you enjoyed the video.